Chapter 261 Fighting Oneself. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max explained the plan to all 13 local captains. For this mission, Max had decided that the best course of action would be to take only the Tier 3 captains with him for the fight, because the Tier 1 and 2 soldiers might have trouble scaling the walls. Although the captains did not understand the specifics of the plan as to what was natural gas and what Max intended to do, the only thing they knew for sure was that they had to enter the rebel city and be ready for a fight. Hence the preparations for the departure began. Severus was responsible for collecting the natural gas in pressurized cylinders, as his background as a part-time scientist helped him achieve the task. Anna and Asiva were responsible for buying the necessary resources such as arrows, ropes, potions, etc. Max was responsible for mentally psyching up Sebastian and finding appropriate costume as he dressed up the dwarf in the most earthy piratey way possible. Sebastian had a black bandana over his head with small skull symbols all over, he had silver beads hanging from his long beard and a temporary mermaid tattoo over his neck made from blue ink. He wore a loose, dirty red t-shirt with a brown jacket and looked like a complete pirate straight out of a 1960s film. Ho ho ho, girls who suck dick are big fat ho ho ho, Sebastian said as Max chuckled. You're not Santa Claus, leave it, you wouldn't know that, old man, Max said as he realized mid-sentence that although Sebastian was a human once, he was not a human from Earth. What, I thought I nailed it. All pirates are degenerates who live half their lives in whorehouses. They make nasty jokes about women all the time, Sebastian said in his defense as he became conscious of his acting. I have no idea, buddy, all I know of space pirates is that they try to loot newly integrated planets and that they are pathetically weak. When they attacked a newly awakened Earth, my brother's sneeze was enough to kill them, Max said as Sebastian's face turned a little sad. Well, your brother killed a monarch, so, yeah, of course he's strong, Sebastian said with a little anger behind his voice. Max felt guilty, although he had nothing to do with Thor's killing. Max felt bad for Sebastian to lose his father. The two of them had confronted this issue, and Sebastian had said that he barely knew Thor anyways and that his death won't affect their friendship. However, it was still a sore subject to touch. Well, we leave in 3 hours, we want to sneak in at night so that we face the least resistance. Take care, Max said, as he decided to bail and give Sebastian some space. In Max's private cabin, Max had a lot on his mind, however he did not want to overthink about what could go wrong in the future, hence, to pass the time he decided to enter the mirror world and do some training until it was time to go. Max sat cross-legged, and closed his eyes as he asked Drax to let him enter the mirror world, and the old AI did as requested and extracted Max's consciousness into the mirror world. It was Max's first time entering the place and Max was pleasantly surprised to see that it looked just like the cave where Kremeth had taken him to train and teach his core tricks, as Max soon realized that it was not like the cave, but the cave itself, as in it was a perfect replication. I designed it this way so that you may feel familiar with the place, Drax's voice echoed from the surroundings as a mirror image of Max, dressed in white robes, walked out in front of him and stared straight into Max's eyes. Freaky, Max said, as it felt odd to see his own face as an opponent, however he soon took a fighting stance and prepared to give it his all. Battle mode, his enemy activated battle mode and the flame armor activated. A cool montage of his robes burning away and being replaced by a flaming armor were witnessed by Max as he felt impressed by the Agni-Astra's ability and said, looks really cool. The enemy balled his fists and let out the attack, Inferno, as Max happily let the thing hit, thinking that he was immune to fire damage. However, the attack overwhelmed Max as he felt a searing burning sensation, and a moment later he found himself standing in the far corner of the cave as a projection of Drax the AI informed him that he died. How the fuck am I hurt by fire? Max complained to Drax, not understanding why fire was able to kill him. In this mirror world your resistances and immunity count for nothing. It's a training ground. Do you think the fire god would be able to train against his own clone here if the two of them could not use fire attacks on each other? What would he come here to train then? Swordsmanship. Drax reprimanded Max, who shook his head and jogged back to his opponent, ready for another round. Max activated battle mode himself and took a fighting stance ready to attack his clone with fire attacks this time around. Max took the initiative to attack first this time as he launched a fireblast towards his enemy who charged straight towards the attack and blocked it with the fire shield technique without even using any of his arms. His enemy counterattacked with a fireblast of his own, and Max had to roll away sideways to avoid the attack since he did not have mastery over the fire shield spell yet. By the time Max was on his feet he was surrounded by 15 hounds as for the first time ever his own beasts jumped at him. Max tried to fend them off, but all of them attacking him at once forced him to momentarily ignore his opponent, who used another, Inferno, attack to send Max to the afterlife. From start to finish the fight only lasted 15 seconds. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Alcat_Gaming, please thank him in the comments for this one. ///// Chapter 262 Infiltration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the 3 hours that Max trained inside the mirror world, he died a total of 154 times against his own self. L.RG in 180 minutes of fighting, he died 154 times averaging just over a minute against himself, which would be lower if one counted all the time wasted in respawn and his sprint back to his opponent. The fight in the mirror world was an eye-opening experience for Max as he realized just how far away he was from being even the best version of himself as a fighter, let alone the best tier 3 fighter. His enemy used the same set of moves that he used, but the enemy's execution of those moves was very different from that of Max's. Max felt like a new world opened to him when he saw some attacks being used in ways that he had never thought of before as he felt like he had a lot to learn and digest after this session. For a moment Drax was worried that the constant defeat would make Max lose morale, but he soon realized that Max was a madman and a masochist who chuckled loudly after every defeat as he saw those defeats as fears even he himself was capable of but was yet to learn. Every defeat made his blood pump faster as he tried to not make the same mistakes as before and ended up making new mistakes to reflect upon. In the end Drax realized his worries were for naught as although childish, Max had a strong mentality and personality in other fields and was not easily discouraged by small setbacks. At the designated meeting spot, the rebel city was 250 kilometers from the town where the garrison was stationed and was about an 18 hours ride on a mount. As the sun began setting down, the group started their journey on their respective mounts, and although Asiva, Anna and Sebastian each had their dragons perfectly capable of flight, they chose to ride horses with the rest of the captains instead of flying while Max rode one of his nether beasts. The group only encountered 2 monsters on the way and had a smooth journey up till the rebel city. A few kilometers outside the city walls, the group camped in the woods as they watered their mounts and took some rest, while Severus scouted the best path of entry. There were tier 1 and 2 sentries posted all over the walls, however, they were lazy and only on the lookout for any large approaching armies and did not care much about small groups going in or out. Severus hence found the perfect spot for entering, right in the middle of 2 sentry posts and began scaling the wall with nothing but 2 brooms with a javelin-like pointy edge at the ends. He plunged one into the wall and tested it for weight, before plunging another a bit higher and climbing it. This way, Severus scaled the whole wall and then threw a secure rope down for the rest of the group to climb up. The tier 3 captains used the rope and scaled the wall within seconds as their superior strength allowed them to breeze through vertical climbing, however, crossing the second wall was a bit trickier. The sentry posts between the 2 walls were impossible to bypass without being noticed and the distance between the 2 walls was too far away to jump, with the second wall being taller than the first one. It was here that Anna came to the rescue as she power-shot thick ropes across the boundary and the group used them to begin climbing using nothing but their bare hands as the rest of their bodies hung freely below. It was the middle of the night when the group was crossing between the walls, and should they make the slightest noise it would alert the sentries underneath and put them in a lot of trouble, hence they needed to be extremely careful to not make any sounds while crossing. Max felt his heart rise to his throat when he saw one of the sentries walking out of the tent with a steaming hot drinking mug, but thankfully he did not look up to the starry sky and went back inside without noticing the hanging men above. The task of pulling yourself forward while hanging on nothing but thick ropes was hard, but the Tier 3 captains did it easily as the entire group crossed the distance between two walls in under 1 minute before leaping straight down and entering the city in the darkness of the night. The infiltration mission was successful and the sentries had not raised any alarms, meaning that they had entered the area undetected. The group quickly changed clothes and scattered as they separately made their way towards the Wayward Inn, a local inn that Severus had scouted prior to the mission and declared as safe for staying. The inn owner was old and did not pry into things much and was the perfect host for this kind of mission where anonymity was paramount. For the next 1 hour the group kept checking into the inn, in intervals of 5.10 minutes as they registered as separate entities. The inn owner, being none the wiser, was happy that his business was booming as he did not suspect any foul play. The group was able to settle in for the night in their respective rooms, but there was no sleep for the men as the town hall meeting was the following morning. The most anxious was Sebastian, on whose shoulders the entire mission rested, as he mentally prepared the lines he was going to use in the hall the next morning. Sebastian mentally memorized all the rules of the Turtle Hermit Way and prayed to Kremeth to lend him the power of the cowardice, because he was sure that he would need it the next morning. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Alcat_Gaming. Please thank him in the comments for this one /////. Chapter 263 Sebastian the Pirate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was an eventful morning for the group as they took their designated positions near the town hall and were on standby until the explosion occurred. The town hall meeting had started with all 200 captains and 4 generals present in the building for the day's discussion. A small perimeter had been set up across the town hall by weaker rebel officials and access to the area was blocked. About 100 meters away from the town hall, Anna was perched on a rooftop and had eyes on the entrance as she was Sebastian's cover to retreat should everything go wrong. Max waited patiently on the roadside just outside the perimeter as he casually chatted with one of the guards about what the meeting was about today and how he hated the non-rebel supporting population. By blending in as a civilian, Max had the closest proximity to Sebastian's act as the space pirate was bound to make his entrance any second now. Sebastian's POV. Sebastian had spent the entire night thinking about the lines he was going to say the next day. He had gotten so deep into his role at this point that even his subconscious thoughts were spoken in a pirate accent. Right before morning, he felt like he looked too clean for a space pirate and hence decided to roll in some dirt and debris. Only when he was satisfied that he looked like a filthy pig who people would think twice of before touching did he begin the show as he waltzed straight through the rebel perimeter shouting, "Goomba Makacha, Goomba Makacha, Goomba Makacha." Every time Sebastian yelled this phrase he threw a handful of chalk powder in the air as the local rebel officers were baffled by the appearance of the weirdly dressed man throwing chalk. It took the rebel officers a full 30 seconds to realize that they needed to stop this man. However, as they approached Sebastian, the stench from his body made them reluctant to get too close as they just blocked his path and said, "You can't enter this part of town today, beggar, go beg somewhere else." Sebastian widened his eyes and showed his teeth as he grit them hard, making an angry monkey face at the official who called him a beggar before starting to make weird noises from his throat. "Ok ok ok alu alalo." The officer started to feel anxious by Sebastian's antics and subconsciously took a step back. But every step that he took back, Sebastian took forward before suddenly deciding to jump at the official and landing a tight slap. Slap! The clapping sound of the slap resounded clearly to even Anna, who was far far away, as all the rebel officials at the scene were stunned silent by the weird man. Max stared at Sebastian's performance with wide eyes and an open mouth as he himself could not figure out just what the fuck his friend was doing. "How dare ye filthy land dweller insult me, do ye even know who thou is facing? I'm Gabu, the messenger of mighty pirate Goomba. I don't beg, I take th," Sebastian said as he hung on the tall vampire by his collar. The scene of a small 4-foot dwarf hanging on a 7-foot vampire and still threatening him was funny AF, but the way in which Sebastian carried himself nobody dared to laugh. Sebastian landed on his feet and spat beside the man he just slapped before shouting once more, Gumba Makacha, Gumba Makacha. The rebels quickly started discussing amongst each other about the strange man, and a few seconds later another official walked up to Sebastian and carefully asked, "What are you here for, pirate dwarf?" Sebastian nodded his head and blew some chalk straight at the man's face before saying, Gumba sends Gabu to parley with your council before his arrival. You land dwellers must take me to your council. His declaration promoted an even more intense discussion amongst the low-ranking rebel officers who did not know what the heck they should do as they did not have the necessary authority to make this decision. Can a dwarf even be a pirate? One of the rebel officials asked to another. Look at him, he's filthy, he's covered in tattoos and he has that pirate look. He has to be a pirate. Another rebel official replied, some pirate crews keep dwarves as errand boys, maybe he's the errand boy, a third rebel official suggested as the intense discussion continued. As the rebel officials discussed on whether or not they should interrupt the ongoing meeting, Sebastian silently glanced towards Max, who gave him a slight clap for his performance. Sebastian smiled. It was not easy for him, but having Max nearby gave him much confidence. After a lengthy discussion, the rebels decided that since today's meeting was about Gumba, they had to inform the higher-ups about his representative wanting to have a say at the council, and hence one of the rebel officers bravely entered the town hall and decided to interrupt the proceedings. It took him 5 minutes of discussing before he came out and said, send the dwarf in, also send 2 men to accompany him. We don't want him to blow chalk on the captain's faces. Bingo, thought Max as Sebastian haughtily marched alongside 2 officials into the town hall. As he walked into the room filled with many powerful enemies, Sebastian kept his cool and showed his teeth to anyone whose stare made him feel uneasy as he laughed like a madman. All eyes were on him when he entered as many people inspected his power level and his tier. Unperturbed however, Sebastian glanced all across the room before shouting, Gumba Makacha. //////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by Patron Wars. Please thank him in the comments for this one. Also, you guys are really amazing, just one day and we have brought down the gap between ourselves and number 10 to 97 tickets. Let's go guy. You are the best. /////. Chapter 264 The Act You are listening at novelfull.audio. I come before you today with a proposal from the Enigma, the Charisma, the Pirasima himself, thy great Capitan Gumba, Sebastian said as he rolled his head around with great intensity as if he were in a heavy metal concert. One of the 4 generals who were seated at the head of the room raised an eyebrow at Sebastian's antics and asked, and you speak for Gumba himself? Why have we not been informed about him sending a messenger prior to this meeting? Everyone threw a suspicious glance at Sebastian at this instance, wondering if he was really who he claimed to be or was he an imposter. Sebastian looked the Tier 4 general straight in the eye and began chuckling while holding his stomach as he said, You, smarty aren't you? Ha 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 ha, well, there's always one in a crew, the oversmart and oversuspicious guy. I've met the likes of you all my life. Ahoy, just the other day, us pirates raided a merchant ship carrying rhodium crystals, 200 million gold coins, the worth of that haul. But I guess we made a mistake. We should have announced our arrival to them first, sent a notice. Seriously, what do you think, mate? Who the fuck am I? Your gay lover who will inform you before he comes in, you are bumhole. I'm a pirate, mate, our kind don't inform no. One about our arrival. Pin drop silence covered the room as Sebastian's harsh words made the Tier 4 general seethe in anger. He drew his sword and pointed it at Sebastian as he said, I'll cut you down, dwarf, don't test my patience. Sebastian grunted, unperturbed by the threat as he said, Ha, I don't fear you, mate, I'm here with the opportunity of a lifetime for you fools. If you want to kill me, and then go on to live like beggars for the rest of your life. Sebastian spread his arms and challenged the Tier 4 general to attack. But his words and confidence made the man flinch as he sheathed his sword and sat back down. I'm a grumpy tone, the man said, you have 5 minutes to make your case, dwarf. If you fail, we won't give the space pirates permission to land and we will have your head. The man wished to come off threatening, but Sebastian only laughed like a madman against his threat. In the end Sebastian said, "Well then it would be just another day in my life as a pirate." Walking up to the stage where the Tier 4 generals were seated, Sebastian retrieved the cylinders of natural gas from his inventory and opened the cap. His guards were immediately alerted as they tried to stop him, but Sebastian said, "Relax, it's not poison gas," and proceeded to take a big whiff of the gas himself to calm the others down. Turning to face the room, Sebastian said, "Here you two morons, go open these cylinders equidistant in the entire room, let all the land dwellers have a whiff of money." The two guards looked at the superiors for confirmation, but after they nodded they did as instructed and opened canisters of natural gas all across the room. "It's the dead gas, the one that comes from the earth when an animal dies below," one of the captains said as many others nodded recognizing the smell. Sebastian took some chalk in his hands and clapped it as he shouted, "Gumba Makacha, you land dwellers have an abundance of this gas on your planet, but you don't even know its true worth. This gas sells for 50 gold coins a canister. The 30 canisters I brought for demonstration here today cost me 1,500 gold coins, mate, be grateful for it. It's a special gas that's used in the distillation of stamina potions, it helps refine intermediate stamina potions to high-grade stamina potions. The space pirates smuggle these canisters all the time, but now we wish to come into legitimate trade of this stuff. We will pay ye guys 20 gold coins a canister for all the canisters we mine from ye planet. With the right equipment we can do 50,000 canisters a day, that's 1 million gold for you a day, 30 million in revenue a month. You guys will be filthy rich, all thanks to Gumba," Sebastian said as his speech moved the greedy minds of the council, who instantly went into an uproar. Sebastian's proposal was unbelievable, the local rebels could not believe that they were sitting on such rich reserves and had no idea about it as fervent discussions broke out in the entire room. If there was one thing that the rebel government was seriously short on, it was money. Money for equipment, money for welfare and money for development. If they could strike this deal with the space pirates they would have a steady source of income to rely on and could easily upgrade their local facilities from the income generated from this endeavor. While they were convinced by Sebastian's proposal, they were not convinced by his pricing, as they became suspicious if the canister was really only worth 20 gold coins or whether Sebastian was ripping them off on the price. Soon, the entire room's decorum broke down completely as Sebastian smiled and noticed the changes around him. His acting today had been flawless, and every second these idiots wasted on discussion, the gas was filling the room faster and faster as the smell became thicker and thicker. Just 60 more seconds and it'll be enough, Sebastian thought as he kept up his act of a mentally unstable space pirate, laughing and clapping chalk as he counted down the seconds to the doom of the people in the room. "Dwarf, come sit, you have brought us a great proposal indeed, and the council will take time to discuss this matter," one of the Tier 4 generals said, feeling overly excited by Sebastian's proposal as Sebastian obliged and took a seat at the front row. The captains around him all gave him amiable smiles, as Sebastian bared his tongue at them and rolled his eyes into the back of his head, thinking that soon it was going to be time for the big bang. Chapter 265 Town Hall Fight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sebastian did a mental countdown. 10.9, 8. The entire room of rebel officials were thrown into a frenzy after his proposal and could not sense their upcoming inevitable doom as they busied themselves with needless banter. 3, 2, 1. Sebastian used the teleportation technique and he teleported straight outside the town hall right beside Max, who had the return stone for Sebastian's teleportation technique. "Now!" Sebastian urged Max, who did not need to be told twice, as he aimed straight at the town hall door and used the spell, Inferno. Max's Inferno was unstoppable, killing 2 Tier 1 rebel officers on perimeter duty before blasting the door of the town hall open to come in contact with the natural gas and create a massive explosion. Kaboom! A massive explosion that rocked the entire city took place at the town hall, as Max had clearly underestimated the power of the natural gas explosion, with him and Sebastian being blasted backwards by the shockwave for being too close to the blast epicenter. Screams could be heard everywhere as everything seemed to be going in slow motion for Max, who was reeling from the effects of the shockwave, with all his senses into hyperdrive. He was flooded with endless amounts of system notification, but now was not the time for him to sit and review them as he grabbed his bloodsucker sword and began cutting down the surviving rebel officers on perimeter duty. Shwa shwa shwa, arrows whizzed past Max's ears and killed opponents to his right, as Anna, who had eyes on the situation from afar, had joined the fray and started killing the survivors. Within seconds, the rest of his crew also arrived at the spot alongside a flood of citizens who wanted to see just what had happened. Max's uncanny genius had killed 194 Tier 3 rebel captains and 2 Tier 4 generals at once from the explosion, leaving only 6 heavily injured Tier 3 captains and 2 Tier 4 generals alive. Even the ones who did survive were burnt from head to toe and in disbelief as to what the heck was going on as daggers rained down towards them. Asaiva had decided to go for the head of the big fishes right from the get-go, as she ignored all other rebel security officers and went straight for the 2 surviving Tier 4 generals. Asaiva was relentless with her attacks as she single-handedly took on 2 Tier 4 generals and gave neither the time to drink a HP potion or have a chance to counter as she kept pushing them backwards and backwards. After the university's tournament, Asaiva felt like it was only today that she was fighting at her peak strength without reservations, and it felt damn good to be able to do so. One of the 2 Tier 4 generals had a hideously burnt left arm which he could not maneuver at all, and his left leg was also as good as useless because he could not put his full body weight on it and hobbled every time he tried. This gave Asaiva the edge she needed to make life difficult for that general. However, she could not land any blows because of the other Tier 4 general, who was apparently the luckiest bastard in the town hall, having his HP bar reduced by only 40%. All of Asaiva's attempts to create an opening and attack the limp general were thwarted by the healthy one, and the 2 sides reached a sort of stalemate. The stalemate was broken, however, by none other than Sebastian, who used his premium sword technique, 10,000 cuts, and managed to knock the healthy general back while inflicting 4% damage to his HP bar. With him out of the equation momentarily, Asaiva immediately used illusionary daggers, and pierced the limping Tier 4 general on his only working leg thrice with daggers, forcing him to kneel. Once the Tier 4 general kneeled, it was game over for him as Asaiva mercilessly charged and took his head off in one clean cut of her dagger, killing the Tier 4 general for good. Noema no, the other Tier 4 general, shouted as he witnessed the death of his childhood friend Noema right in front of his eyes. "I will kill you all. I will kill you. Especially you lying piece of shit pirate dwarf bastard," the general cursed at the top of his throat as he began preparing his strongest attack in his fit of rage. "Retreat," Sebastian said, sensing the incoming danger as he stepped back from the enemy, but Asaiva, being Asaiva, charged straight through, thinking that she would be able to land an attack before the other guy prepared his spell. It was an utterly dumb decision on her part, as when she was only halfway towards the enemy, he was ready with the spell as he looked towards Asaiva with maniacal eyes and said, "Die, bitch." Asaiva panicked, she braced for impact as the other party, who was a mage, unleashed the Tier 4 attack, Thundering Dragon. A dragonhead whose roar sounded like the rumbling thunder of the clouds charged towards Asaiva at a high speed as Asaiva crossed her daggers and prepared to block the strike. She had made an error in judgment by rushing onto the enemy. She should have taken a more cautious approach, and now she was going to suffer because of it. When the attack was only 10 meters away from Asaiva, suddenly a flame wall erected itself between her and the incoming attack as Max came to his girlfriend's rescue. The dragon collided with the flame wall, and the wall stood firm for about 3 seconds before giving way to a weakened dragon who was neutralized by a fireblast. "Leave it to me now," Max said as he cast Chain Heal to heal all of his crew members before entering into close combat with the only Tier 4 general standing. "So you're the leader of this attack. Good, you deserve to die first," the rebel general said as he cast spell after spell towards Max, which were all neutralized by Max's own fire spells. After 30 seconds of casting spells at full speed, the Tier 4 general began to show signs of fatigue as the previous attack and the barrage had taken a lot out of his mana pool. Max, on the other hand, was not even breathing heavy and only increased the pace of his attacks, much to the bewilderment of his enemy. Chapter 266 Victory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How is this possible? You have spammed monstrous fireballs for the last 5 minutes. why has your mana not run out? Why are you still going like there is no tomorrow? Are your mana reserves limitless? The rebel general asked Max in disbelief as he could not digest what he was witnessing in real life. Max was spamming one fireball every second, and it was not of the inferior kind but one at peak tier 2 strength at that, yet even after spamming 300 fireballs his speed of casting the spell showed no signs of slowing down at all. Max smiled under his mask at the question, the feeling of suppressing a warrior a tier above his current strength so thoroughly that was exhilarating for him. Under his relentless attacks, the enemy's defenses finally crumpled, as Max used an Inferno spell to seal the deal for once and for all. 65000 System notification. You have killed tier 4 player Farron inside a light faction battle zone. Your EXP rewards will be reduced. You have gained plus 120,000 EXP. You have gained plus 50,000 gold coins. You have gained plus 5 high-grade mana potions. You have gained plus 5 high-grade stamina potions. In front of a large rebel city crowd who witnessed the explosion and the subsequent fighting, Max and his crew had managed to score a comprehensive and overpowering victory over the rebels, demoralizing their supporters completely. As Max swept his eyes through the crowd, he saw many cowering in front of his gaze or lowering their eyes when he made eye contact. There was not a single fighter left in the city who was now willing to fight Max and his tier 3 group, as although the city still had thousands of rebel soldiers posted all across, with the top brass gone there was nobody left to organize and rally them for a common goal. Max took a deep breath and addressed the crowd as he said, "Garrison Commander Raven, take command of this city in the name of the Titus clan who are the rightful rulers of this planet. The rebel government is dead, and I declare all citizens of this city as free men. If any of you have a problem with this arrangement, then you can come find me in the mayor's office. If not, then my men will open the gates to the city and Titus clan forces will arrive to take proper control of the city soon." Cheers broke out amongst the crowd from non-rebel supporters who had longed for freedom for a long time now, while those who supported the rebels felt upset in their stomachs. Long live Garrison Commander! Long live Commander Raven! Long live the Liberator! Chants like these erupted from amongst the crowd and his own captains as Max basked in the glory of his victory as he looked for Sebastian and gave the dwarf a big strong slap on the back. This time, Sebastian was undoubtedly the MVP of this operation, and without him this victory would have been impossible. Meanwhile Regus sat at his office desk in Ixtal, as he overlooked the river of blood Sanguis and wondered if his blood would be added to its already massive pool someday. Ever since Regus had sentenced his first son to work as a captain in the eastern front lines, he was in a melancholic mood as nothing seemed to give him the joy of life. Having achieved everything there was to achieve and sitting at the top of the vampire clan, the only goal that Regus had left now was to cultivate a worthy heir. He did not want to rule endlessly, his hunger for remaining the king waning in recent years with nothing exciting happening. When he was nothing but a commander in the service of Rumi Titus, the then vampire king, life was exciting every day as he plotted a rebellion to overthrow the government. However, ever since then life has been mundane and dull. All his opponents were dead, all those who wished to overthrow him were eliminated. Things had become so peaceful that it had been 200 years since Regus last drew his sword. The only fear that kept Regus awake at nights now was the ancient prophecy, the one that said that there would be a warrior capable of wielding Sanguis herself as a weapon. Every day Regus waited for that prophesied individual to show himself as he desperately wanted the excitement once more in his life. Knock knock. Regus broke free of his brooding when he heard a knock on his office door, as his wife walked into the room with a handful of documents. "Reports my king about how Marcus is faring," the queen said as Regus took a lengthy look at the report. Regus had half expected Marcus to act like a spoiled brat and reveal his identity in his first week of being a captain. However, surprisingly the young prince had shown spine and character for the first time in his life. The report suggested that Marcus was working hard and trying his best to whip his crew and himself into battle shape. A big smile broke out on Regus's face as he read this report. It seemed like his first son was finally on the right path to self-improvement. Regus was worried that his punishment would be too harsh on his child, but it seemed like some adversity was all that Marcus needed to become a diamond in the rough. Happy with the report, Regis said, "Seems like my first wife's son is not a complete waste after all. I hope he suffers no major setbacks now." The queen, his second wife, scoffed internally at the remark. She had 2 sons with Regis and both of them far outshined Marcus, but if one were to ask who Regis loved the most, it would undoubtedly be Marcus. As a father, Regis's desire for Marcus to improve was understandable. However, little did the Vampire King know that the child of the prophecy was going to cause a storm in his son's life. ///////n. Bonus chapter for hitting the PS target. Good job everyone. We have also closed down the ticket gap to number 10 to just 37 tickets. Let's go guys. Good job. /////. Chapter 267 Rewards. You are listening at novelfull.audio.xxx. Note: due to popular demand, I have decided to change the military ranking hierarchy to the standard USA structure to avoid future confusion. The hierarchy is 1. Private/Foot Soldier 2, Lieutenant 3, Garrison Commander 4, Captain 5, Major 6, General, 1 star, 7, General, 2 star, 8, General, 3 star, Max is currently Garrison Commander. Major Ratty is still Major Ratty. The captains will now be called lieutenants, meaning Asiva, Anna, Marcus etc. will be called lieutenants. Sorry for the inconvenience caused by the previous system. XXX. You're kidding me, right? The boy actually did it. Major Ratty said with excitement under his voice as he read the report of Max's victory. Apparently Max had routed the entire rebel higher-ups in a surgical strike before taking command of the city. He sent a victory report to his immediate senior, Captain Green, who sent 10 garrisons to help stabilize the control of the city as he himself prepared to make a personal visit. Max was becoming a legend amongst the army as his name was spreading fast as a genius strategist with unlimited ambition. Within 10 days of taking charge, he had routed a bandit camp and took down a rebel city with nothing more than a handful of companions. His bravery, intelligence, and style had begun catching the eyes of the higher-ups as well. Ratty still remembered the firm handshake that Max did when he joined the Titus clan. He knew at that very moment that the man was something else. "Congratulations, sir, you scouted the right man for the job. Your future sight continues to baffle weak mortals like myself," his secretary, who was a master in flattery, said to Ratty as the major's chest swelled in pride. "I knew I was right to give him permission. He pulled it off without a single troop dead in the end, a complete success. I guess a promotion is in order for all of us. Type a letter to the general, invite him to a victory banquet. Let us honor the kid with a medal of excellence," Ratty said as he wrapped the report papers and placed it under his arm and walked out of the room. Max's POV. Max received his invitation letter to a banquet that was meant to honor his achievements 3 days after the city fell. The banquet was hosted on planet Xander, now the host planet of the Titus clan. Apparently a 1-star general was going to grace the banquet and award Max the Medal of Excellence. Max smiled brightly at this piece of news as this was the moment he had been precisely aiming for. Now with a chip on his shoulder, Max had the leverage needed to ask the 1-star general to give him a chance to prove his worth on the eastern frontlines. All these small fights that he had fought here on this peaceful agricultural planet meant nothing in the bigger picture. However, if he was able to break the deadlock and win any contested planets on the eastern frontlines, he would make a historic achievement. Max hoped to be promoted to the rank of captain or major and to have a sizable contingent under his command, because the upcoming fights would not only need manpower, but also a lot of information gathering. In his past life, the deadlock was broken a year from now by a prominent vampire fighter by using an unusual trick whereby he captured 2 critical forts in a single day. It was a brilliant strategy, but the execution was also on point, as the slightest mistake could have led to a complete defeat. Armed with the knowledge of the future, Max was confident in producing the same result, but he needed a large crew for it, at least 20,000 soldiers under his command, without which the strategy would be useless. Knock knock. A knock on his office door broke Max of his brooding, as Sebastian entered the room. You saw the letter. It's gonna be a feast. Sebastian said excitedly as the dwarf had now washed away the ugly tattoos and the weird style, returning back to his normal appearance. I saw the letter, and while I'm being awarded with a Medal of Excellence, they have asked me to decide whom to award with the Medal of Valor, and I've decided to give that honor to you, Max said as he tapped on Sebastian's shoulder. Well, I fucking deserve it, eh? Sebastian said as he sat across Max and gave Max a bright smile. I wish that Master was there too, to see us be rewarded, Sebastian said, as he seriously missed Kremeth. The old turtle had changed his life for the better and Sebastian could never thank him enough for it. When he met Kremeth he was a dwarf uncomfortable in his own skin, however, by the time he left he was a cowardly dwarf capable of anything, and it was all because of Kremeth's grueling training. Nah, the old turtle would probably not be impressed. I think he's at tier 8 or tier 7 minimum, he would not be interested in such useless things, Max said as Sebastian shrugged his shoulders in response. In their stay with Kremeth, the two of them could never figure out just how rich or powerful their master was, and to this day they had no clue as to why he chose to live like a recluse in a dungeon. By the way, how's Mira? Sebastian asked, wondering what the little dragon was doing as Max sighed deeply and said, already peak tier 3, at level 299, she has convincingly surpassed us both. Sebastian's eyes widened at this revelation. The young one was leveling up like crazy. How many levels did you gain from the town hall fight? Sebastian asked Max, who pointed 2 index fingers, indicating he gained 11 levels. 11. I only got 4.tch, so what's your current level? Sebastian asked Max in anticipation, as it had not even been a full 2 weeks since he had tiered up. 260, Max replied as Sebastian fainted on the spot. Chapter 268 The Banquet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Planet Xander, the Victory Banquet. Max felt out of place in the banquet. He had never attended such an event and did not know the proper etiquettes for greeting others. Almost everyone asked Max why he wore a mask, and suggested that he should reveal his face to the rest of the military men so everybody present knew just how the new rising star looked. However, Max politely refused the offer, saying that he was hideously scarred under the mask and hence did not wish to show his face. Surprisingly, Anna and Asiva were really good at the event while Severus had decided to not attend. The two girls had a royal upbringing and had often attended such events, giving them the necessary social skills needed to maneuver through the night flawlessly. That left Max with Sebastian, the two buddies who were both clueless idiots, as they shook hands with everyone who approached them and raised their glasses to say, cheers, at every small compliment. Major Ratty was especially happy at the banquet as he laughed and greeted everyone, telling them stories of how the operation was his plan all along. It was kind of shameless how Ratty hogged a lot of the spotlight, however, Max did not mind as he had bigger fish to fry. General Zest, the main guest of the evening, had not yet arrived, and all the official proceedings were only going to start once he was settled in. General Zest was a tier 5 warrior who would have long become a god if not for a setback he faced when fighting a barbarian on the eastern frontline where his mana veins became majorly damaged. The enemy had used some high-grade mana poison, one that was unknown and untreatable at the time, and unfortunately in trying to save his life Zest had to compromise the integrity of his mana circuit as he locked the mana poison in one portion of his circuit and contained it there so that it did not spread to the rest of his body. In doing so, Zest managed to save his life. However, he was never the same warrior again. Everyone in the military knew that Zest was capable of becoming a 2-star general in the army if he wanted to, but Zest never accepted the promotion because in his mind only tier 6 gods were qualified to hold that post. Hence, he stayed back as a 1-star general and continued to serve the military with all his devotion. He was a legend amongst the troops and a feared name for all Titus clan enemies. About 50 minutes after the banquet officially started, a small lean man walked into the banquet hall and everyone became deathly silent as they saluted the man who walked past them. Max had a feeling that this might be General Zest, and hence he followed the mob mentality and greeted the general the same way as the others. After hearing such legendary tales about the man, Max had not expected Zest to be a 5 feet tall vampire with little to no muscle mass over his entire body. He looked frail, like somebody could blow him away with a huff and a puff. However, his eyes were incredibly sharp, as when his gaze met with Max's, Max felt a chill run down his spine. "Greetings General Zest, thank you so much for coming here today," Ratty said as he had a big smile on his face. "Who are the boys?" Zest asked, completely uninterested in Ratty in his brown nosery. "Oi, Raven, Sebastian, come here," Ratty said as he wrapped his hands around Max's shoulders once he came and greeted the general, trying to show how close he was to the man. "That idea of blowing the town hall up, it was out of the box and brilliant. I admire your uncanny genius, it's a rare trait and a must for leadership," Zest said curtly as he pinned the Medal of Excellence on Max's uniform. "I assume you must be the one who executed the plan?" Zest asked Sebastian. "Yes sir, the entire crew executed the plan, but according to Garrison Commander, I did the most," Sebastian replied humbly. "Good," Zest said as he pinned the Medal of Valor on Sebastian's uniform. Finally looking at Ratty, General Zest said, "Good job finding these lads Ratty, I'm impressed." Major Ratty wanted to gloat at the compliment and boast about his superior sense of scouting. However, before he had a chance to say a single word, Max interrupted him by starting a conversation with Zest. "General, if I may. I have a small request to make today," Max said as he waited for Zest's response. Zest raised an eyebrow at the statement as he cautiously said, "Go on." Zest had given Max the benefit of the doubt that he would not ask for anything ridiculous. However, if Ratty said the same line he would have probably cut the conversation off by now. "General, I want to serve the Titus clan on the eastern front lines. It's been years since we have gained an acre of land there, but if you give me the chance, I'll definitely prove my worth on the big stage," Max said with confidence as Zest's eyes widened in disbelief. It was common knowledge that life in the eastern front lines was the toughest. The living quarters were horrible, fights broke out any day and only soldiers who spent more than 5 years deployed at the place ever came back alive. In all his years of serving as the general, this was the first time someone had requested Zest to be deployed on that hellhole voluntarily. Zest looked into Max's eyes only to see a fiery passion burning inside them, a passion that was hungry to prove its worth, a fire that Zest had in his own eyes in his younger days before his tragedy. Zest could not help but feel moved by Max's words and attitude as his lips subconsciously parted to show his teeth as he said, "Well, are you sure? //////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Cervantes91. Please thank him in the comments for this one. Also, we have reached top 10 in GT rankings. And have created a slight gap between ourselves and number 11, great job team. Unfortunately I'm down with high fever and writing chapters is very difficult for me at the moment, so release of bonuses will be slightly slower than usual. ////. Chapter 269 Deployment Orders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Are you dumb? The Eastern Frontlines are a death flag for career promotion. Why would you want to go to such difficult places? Stay with me, I'll make you major in no time. Major Ratty said as he admonished Max for the stupid idea. General Zest gave Major Ratty the death glare as he unleashed a bit of his aura to suppress Ratty. Max felt the powerful aura of General Zest too as he realized that although it was not directed towards him, the aura was still strong enough to make him perspire if it was directed at him. The small man had an unbelievably strong presence and Ratty immediately regretted his choice of words when he realized that it made Zest mad. "I'm sure I want to be deployed to the Eastern Frontlines," Max said with conviction as he met Zest's eyes as the general smiled even more brightly than before. "Good, then I'll look forward to your future achievements, Captain," Zest said as he promoted Max to the rank of captain on the spot. Max would now lead from anywhere between 50.150 garrisons, which would total to about 7,500.15,000 troops. A little short of Max's goal of 20,000 but still a sizable number compared to the small garrison he commanded now. Max gave Zest the proper military salute and bowed his head politely for giving him this opportunity. What planet do you have in mind for your deployment? As a reward for your bravery, I'll let you pick your own battlefield, Zest said as Max beamed in joy at the question. He did have a particular battlefield in mind, one where his odds of victory would be the best. Mar-a-Lago, Max said as Zest was once again impressed by Max's choice. The man had chosen the toughest battlefront of the three. Very well, Mar-a-Lago it shall be, Zest said with a satisfied expression as he glanced his eyes around the rest of Max's crew and said, I suppose you'll be bringing some men with you. Max nodded. He was impressed by the general's keen social sense as he said, yes sir, a motley crew of 4 people from my garrison, Bedouin and approved, your service shall start tomorrow morning Captain, don't be late for your reporting, and do enjoy the banquet tonight, Zest said as he dismissed Max and Sebastian and began socializing with other guests. Max clenched his fists in joy. He had managed to score an opportunity to climb the ladder of the Vampire Society. While today he was only known as a rising star of the Titus clan military, his name would soon resound amongst the rising stars of the vampire kind as a whole. What Max did not know however, was that tomorrow morning at the reporting he was going to face Lieutenant Marcus, the Aurelius heir stripped from his titles and his privileges, under the military oversight of Max. Meanwhile Erasmus, a tired Erasmus sighed as he read the daily report. 5 men were lost today in needless scuffles and one of them was even a Tier 3 strongman. The group had decided to hunt for food in the vampire-controlled forests and were spotted by a scout and later ambushed by a group of 25 enemies. Needless to say the fight was utterly one-sided and the 5 barbarians died a swift death filled with 1,000 cuts. For how long do I need to teach these people that they must not go hunt in vampire-controlled lands? It's a dumb decision, but every year 100 fools die because they attempt it anyways, Erasmus thought as he crumpled the report and threw it into the fire nearby. Erasmus was reaching the end of his tenure as the chieftain of Mar-a-Lago and wanted to find a successor for himself soon, but none of the youngsters in the clan were able to impress him enough for him to hand over the post of chieftain to them. Erasmus was the Tier 5 barbarian chieftain of Mar-a-Lago. He was the de facto head of all operations on the planet and was responsible for not conceding a single acre of land to the vampires in decades. Unlike his tribe which was very backward in their approach to civilization, Erasmus was a man of honor. He did not speak the uncouth barbarian tongue of slangs and insults, he did not indulge in barbaric practices such as eating the liver of their dead enemy, nor did he approve of taking prisoners of war. The tales of his valor and righteousness made him a respected individual even inside the vampire camp, as one of the code virtues of Erasmus was that he never attacked an opponent a tier weaker than himself first. He would let weaker opponents slide by unharmed and did not allow his men to kill retreating troops who had thrown their weapons. A quality that garnered him both praise and hatred. Amongst his own crew, many were sick of his holier-than-thou attitude. However, he was the strongest of everyone on the planet, capable of stalling an entire army of 10,000 alone, hence his power ensured that nobody dared to rebel against his principles. Recently, Erasmus was reaching the peak of Tier 5 and after his ascension he would no longer be allowed to enter the planet as per the peace treaty and hence he was grooming a number of potential candidates to replace him when his time to ascend came. While he was unaware of this, the news of his ascension were common news amongst his tribesmen and a hidden war of succession had already begun from the shadows. The once cohesive barbarian unit was starting to crack from the within, and their leader Erasmus was none the wiser about all this. This beef was one of the big reasons behind what allowed the vampires to create an opening and seize Mar-a-Lago in Max's past life, and one of his key tasks as captain was to fan these exact flames in this life. // This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Cervantes91, please thank him in the comments for this one. // Chapter 270 Marcus's Disbelief. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Max landed on planet Mar-a-Lago with his crew at very early morning and was pumped to assume duty. Apparently the previous day all the other lieutenants and garrison commanders had been given the notice to be present in today's meeting to introduce themselves to the new captain, and Max was very enthusiastic about meeting them all as well. Although Max wanted to, he as a captain could not promote individuals to garrison commander post as only majors and above could do that. The best Max could do was promote someone to lieutenant rank, and his friends were already at that post. This meant that while Max was the captain, his crew was not under his direct command but rather under the direct command of one of the garrison commanders. This fact did bother Max a little, but he decided to take the see and decide approach, as he wanted to test out the waters first before making any actions to bring them under his direct supervision. Upon his arrival, he was greeted by a rather bulky vampire who gave him the traditional salute and introduced himself as the lieutenant of 12th Division. He was the man responsible for transporting Max from the teleportation center to Fort Sven, which was Max's territory to hold and defend, about 50 kilometers from the clashing border. The situation is bad, sir, there's no other way to say it nicely. The barbarians are too strong, and while we are technologically superior to them, with better weapons, better equipment and better constructed forts, they have this raw passion that is impossible to deal with. Once I saw a barbarian charging towards me like a madman, even though he was shot in the chest by 3 arrows. Their vitality is beyond impressive, and their leader Erasmus is very smart. He does not fall into needless baits, he knows how to hold his lines properly, and at this point of time, taking back a single inch of land from under his iron grip feels like a very difficult task, the lieutenant said honestly. So the morale is low, I assume? Max asked, although he half knew the answer. Low. It's non-existent, Captain. Some lieutenants don't even complete their daily patrol duties anymore because they fear being ambushed by the enemy. It's like we have already lost the war before any big fight breaks out, and that is precisely the reason behind why me and many passionate troops like me are very frustrated in this deployment. As soldiers we don't fear death, sir, but we fear humiliation and cowardice. I'll be damned if my 12th Division goes into the history books as cowards, the lieutenant said passionately as Max approved of his passion. Now that Max was in charge, it seemed like there were a lot of things that he needed to fix, with the first being the morale of the troops. The belief of victory was a very powerful force. The troops needed to believe that they could succeed to actually succeed, and it was Max's job as the captain to instill this belief into them. Don't worry, now that I'm here I'll make sure things change for the better, Max said in a reassuring tone as he tried to soothe the man's raging passion. Although the lieutenant was skeptical about Max's ability to do anything, he nodded with courtesy, giving him the benefit of the doubt. Meanwhile Marcus was annoyed to wake up even earlier than usual. His sleep, which used to be 10.12 hours a day, was already cut down to an agonizing 7 hours, however, he now had to wake up in 6, because some stupid new captain was taking command today and wanted all lieutenants and garrison commanders to be present. God damn it, ruin someone else's sleep, you bastard, why are you after me? Marcus cursed internally as he tidied his uniform and proceeded towards the designated assembly point. It was night time with barely any visibility at all, yet hundreds of lieutenants and garrison commanders had assembled to greet the new captain. Since the captain had not yet arrived, everyone was at ease and casually greeting each other, as looking at their energy so early in the morning made Marcus sick in his stomach. The average military man was too cheerful for his own good in Marcus's opinion. Laughing and cracking jokes at the most dumb things. But he understood that it was the stress of the job that made them like this, because it was a coping mechanism against that stress. Marcus was yawning as he scanned the crowd to judge the looks of every lieutenant assembled, when his eyes landed on a figure he was all too familiar with that made his heart flutter. Asiva, Marcus thought internally as he suddenly felt like he had a shortness of breath looking at her fresh visage so early in the morning. For a good 2 minutes Marcus stared at Asiva, until he was annoyed by a hand that was placed over her shoulder, which he recognized to be that of Severus the criminal, the one that was imprisoned in Dombivli city alongside Asiva. As Marcus scanned the remaining members around Asiva, he identified the dwarf that was one of the members causing him misery at the auction and the elf archer who was responsible for killing his good friend Siegfried. Marcus felt rage, hatred, anxiety all at once as he looked at the crew as murderous thoughts arose in his mind. He looked around fervently, trying to see if the masked man was present as well, but to his disappointment he could not find him. Captain Raven reporting for duty, all officers salute. Marcus's thoughts were interrupted by a loud shout, as everyone suddenly formed neat lines and saluted the upcoming captain. While glancing at Asiva and crew, Marcus did a lousy salute until a bad feeling began rising in his stomach. No way, no fucking way, thought Marcus as he glanced at the new captain and found him to be the dreaded masked man, his sworn enemy. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Cervantes91, please thank him in the comments for this one /////.